I'm Christine Francoeur, your host and a committee member and teacher with the WTM. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we honor and acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, the Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation, and all the people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. And for those of you who have joined us in the past, great to have you here again. And for those who are new, hey, welcome. We're so glad you're here tonight. We are a volunteer organization led and founded by Dr. Philip Bluestein. WTM, also known as Wellness Through Mindfulness, started over 7 years ago, bringing mindfulness and related topics to the Calgary community. If you're interested in hearing some of our previous talks or offerings, you can find plenty of resources on our website, thebreathproject.org. All our events are on the first and third Thursday of each month, and you can register for our upcoming events on our website. And while you're there, if you haven't already, please sign up for our newsletter. That's the best way to stay connected, easy for me to say, connected and up to date on our upcoming talks. Also to remind you, because we are volunteer-led and all of our speakers give freely of their time, it's really your donations that keep us going. So if you feel called, I will put a link in the chat to our website where you can make a donation for tonight's talk. That could be $5, $10, $20, whatever you feel called to share with us and whatever feels right for you, because it all is greatly appreciated and it helps us keep the lights on. And when we say that, we actually mean it helps us get our communications out. It keeps our website up to date. It is the creation of all the fantastic posters that you see with all the speaker information. So really, this is just about pure communications, and that's really what your donations help us do. And in the spirit of that, we have some great topics coming up in the next month and a half. On November 17th, we have Finding Peace Through Forgiveness, the Jewish Way, led by Rabbi Rick Klein. We have Trauma-Informed Mindfulness on December 1st, led by Dr. Paula Fairman. And with me on December 15th, we will have a great discussion around mindfulness at work. But for tonight, we welcome Dr. Leslie Ellestad. And if you haven't met Leslie before, she's a recently retired family physician who had a private practice for 35 years. She loves being a grandmother and is replenished by being active outdoors. She began her meditation almost 25 years ago and has studied in the Tibetan, insight, and secular meditation traditions. She enjoys sharing the practice by combining her understanding of meditation, neurobiology, and psychology. She currently teaches and supports practice opportunities at Yoga MCC and here with WTM. Tonight, she explores how meditation moves us closer to our personal experience, supporting increasing depths of insight. To keep our practice in balance, it's helpful to open the space in which our experience is arising. By connecting with spaciousness, mindfulness practice supports the gradual release of the clinging that insight reveals. Tonight, we will have a guided meditation with Leslie and her talk on how to practice with mindfulness of space, both in the formal practice and in daily life. So a reminder that these sessions are provided strictly with the intention to provide education. It's not a forum intended to deal with specific personal issues. Wellness Through Mindfulness and the participating speakers are not a substitute for professional care. So after Leslie's finished her talk, there will be time for questions and discussions. So please feel free to put any thoughts or questions you may have in the chat box as the evening progresses. I'll be monitoring that so I can share those with Leslie. And with that, I welcome you, Leslie.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Glad you could be here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I thought we'd try something different today and invite people to put their cameras on at least at the beginning so that they have a chance to see that there are other people here. Anyone who feels comfortable putting your camera on and seeing, you don't have to. You may not be prepared for that because we don't usually do it. You might be eating supper. Who knows what you're doing? So we want to welcome you very warmly for being here with us. We know that Zoom is something everyone has become familiar with through the pandemic, and it's turned out to be a very useful tool for sharing teachings like meditation. I myself do a lot of trainings in meditation on Zoom with teachers from a far distance, and I'm enjoying sharing this with you today. So you can choose to keep your camera on or turn it off, but at least you've seen that there's other human beings here. And I'll go on to introduce my topic by starting by sharing a poem with you. So this poem is by Mary Oliver, and it's called Mysteries, Yes. Truly we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of the lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. So in this spirit, I am bowing my head to you and hoping that what I share tonight will help you to see more clearly your path to freedom from struggle and a happiness that is free from dependence on conditions. And the talk I'm going to give is called Mindfulness of Spaciousness. This is a practice that a set of practices that I was trained to do over about a 10-year period with what's called the Dzogchen tradition. I did that first when I started meditating, and then I moved into more the insight, which is insight or mindfulness meditation tradition, which we teach. And now, after 12 years of the insight tradition, I'm integrating the two traditions. And so that's why I'm going to share this evening. So I wanted to start, first of all, by placing space in the context of what are called the 5 elements in the Tibetan tradition. So the 5 elements are earth, water, fire, air, and space. So space is the most ephemeral or ethereal of those 5 elements, but all of the other elements are contained within the space element. When we sit in our rooms as we watch our screens, we notice that they're just looking around the rooms that we're in, that there is space around us. My room happens to have 4 walls, some windows and a door. I'm not sure what your room is like, but something like that there is there are ends to the space, but there is space within the container of the walls. So, and the space is external to our body that I'm describing. And now I invite you to come in to your body. And if it helps you to do that by closing your eyes and sense your body in the space of your room. And then feel the space inside your body. And pop the question to yourself, is there a distinct ending to the space, a boundary between your body internally and the body externally through perception. I'm not talking about your skin as you touch it or look at it. I'm talking about your experience of space external and space internal. So that's one way to experience space. Another way to see space is as the outcome of release. So think of a situation in which you're feeling caught up with stress, caught up with a problem, and then perhaps there's some relief from the stress, or the problem seems to be solved, and you feel that sense of release. And when we release, there is a sense of space that comes around whatever we were caught up with. Space can also be seen to be present when we touch in with qualities like kindness, compassion, forgiveness. And space is supported by qualities of happiness. When we're feeling happy, joyful, we have well-being and health. We feel safe, content, peaceful, and at ease. All of these qualities, when they're present, tend to help us feel more spacious. We can also see space as the container that has no walls. So imagine that you're in your room, and again, it might be helpful to close your eyes. And your room has probably got at least some walls on it. And then you just imagine the walls disappearing. They dissolve themselves into space. And that space goes on and on and on. So that's a quick way that we can connect with spaciousness, is by letting the physical walls drop away. We can also see space as both nothing and everything. Nothing in the sense that it's hard to contact something solid within space. We don't have the level of perception to detect the oxygen and nitrogen molecules that make up most of space. So it looks empty, but it can also be seen as everything, because everything is contained within space and everything has space in it. We can see space as openness. We can see space as infinity, no ending. We can experience the space of allowing, letting things be as they are. We can see space as freedom. And one of the common activities that people who like space and freedom are drawn to is riding a motorcycle, the sense of moving rapidly through space, being free of the walls of a car. We can see space as the deathless, that there is something mysterious about what happens after death, and this sense that there is something vast and mysterious about space that helps us connect with our understanding. So we can also see space as where creativity arises. Creativity arises because we let go of what we already know, and something seems to evolve out of our prior experience, knowledge, and just being a human being. And there needs to be space in our mind for that to happen. We can also see space as not knowing. So when we think we know everything, our mind gets contracted. But when we open to possibility that maybe we don't know, there is space available. So part of what I wanted to do today to help introduce space is to use some photographs. And I have some slides that I have prepared. So I'm going to share screen. Let me see. So this may be a familiar scene to some of you. It's a photograph that was taken outside of Calgary, between Calgary and Cochrane, on a summer's day. And what I would invite you to do is to start by looking at the horizon, where the sky and land, the earth meet. And then sensing into your body and the earth. Can I just check, is everybody seeing the slide?
No, can't see
Yep.
anything.
Okay, something went wrong. I will change that. Okay. Share screen. Any better? Can you see anything?
We've got it, Leslie. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start over. Is that better? Do you see it there?
Yes, perfect, Leslie.
Okay. Okay, so start by looking at the horizon. And connect with your body. Perceiving the earth as body. And then allow your eyes to move up and connect with the spaciousness as represented by sky. And stay present with this sense of space as best as you can. Okay, so that's just to introduce you as to how to look at a sky. And here what we're connecting with is this natural experience of me as this small, each of us as small, and the vastness of earth and sky. And this practice is called sky gazing. At some of the meditation trainings I went to, we went outdoors and just looked at the sky with some instruction. And Calgary is a very opportune place to live if you are interested in sky gazing as a practice. And there are probably many locales to go to do this, but one I know of is the hills at the north of the city. So I would encourage you, whether it's summer or winter, to experiment with going outside and just allowing yourself to rest in your body, look upwards about 60 degrees and just gaze into the sky. So that's just the beginning instructions. And then I want to share a series of skies that may be helpful for your practice as we go forward with the other practices that I'm going to introduce. So are you able to see that?
Perfect, Leslie. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I can't see my notes. Just a moment. Technical problems have been encountered. Let me see. Can't move that. Can't move that. Could I just pause that? Sorry, I may have to alter my plans here because I can't figure out how to do that and see my notes. So maybe if I do that, I guess I'm just going to stick with this one sky. How are we doing now? Can you see the sky?
No, we see your notes, Leslie.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll abort that mission. Stop share. Okay, I'm going to just allow you to imagine the sky. So we're going to do, the first practice we're going to do is called the 3 self-settlings. So bring yourself into your body again. And for myself, I like to do this with my eyes closed to really connect with my body. So just bring yourself into the body and invite body to settle. Feeling the body as a whole, both alert and relaxed. And then connecting with the breath. Feel the body breathing. And then notice the out breath. And at the end of the out breath, invite the mind to open, to unfurl. Connecting with the wisdom of allowing. It's letting things be as they are. And now open your eyes and take a deep breath. And then at the bottom of the in-breath, or the top of the in-breath, then press the belly down. Hold your breath. And then say ah on the out-breath. Just at your own pace, do 2 more of those. Deep breath. Press the belly down. And then and again, 1 more. Deep breath. Press the belly down. And then on the out breath. And then we're going to chant the seed syllable ah. So each of you can do this. I'm the only one that we have to hear. So taking a deep breath. Ah. And then we're going to do 2 more of those. Deep breath. Ah. And then the last one, deep breath. Ah. And again, releasing into the out breath. Letting the mind fall open. No walls in the mind. And it can be helpful to lift your gaze. It's about 60 degrees off the horizontal. And then gaze into space. It's a soft gaze. You may notice that you can see both walls on either side when you gaze like this. And then you can do this practice as well with your eyes closed. So if you like, you can close your eyes. But keep your eyes looking upward behind your eyelids, gazing into the space behind your eyelids. And then if anything should arise, a thought, a feeling, a body sensation, an image, don't get involved with it. Just rest in space, allowing whatever arises to do what it's going to do. And you remain undistracted, resting in space. And you can experiment with going between open-eyed, upward gaze, And if you like, you can go back to closing your eyes. And connect with the darker space behind your eyelids. And continue to rest undistracted in space. And whatever arises, just rest in space, allowing it to come and go as it will, like a snowflake falling into a pond or a balloon drifting through the sky. Just be the sky. Okay, so the thing with this practice is that it's hard to sustain it because you don't have as solid of an anchor like the breath or the body. So the way I was taught was that it's best to do it for short periods of time and then refresh it. So that's how I'm teaching it today, is that we do short practices and then we start over. But they're all about connecting with space. So the next practice is called connecting with space through a sense of expanding space. So again, we'll start by settling into the body and the body breathing. And then sense that your body, our bodies are sitting in space. And then stretch the space in all the directions. So first of all, stretch space upward into the heavens. And keep stretching the space upward until you get the sense that you need to let go. And then let go into space above. And now connect with space to your right. Your body in space. The right side of your body. And then stretch your sense of space to the right. And when it's stretched as far as you can go with it, then let go. And now we connect with the body in space and feel your back body. And now stretch space behind you as far as you can reach. And when you can't reach any further, then let go. And coming back to the body, and then connecting with the left side. Body in space. And stretching as far as you can to the left side of the body. And let that dissolve into space. And now connecting to the space beneath you. Letting that stretch as far as it will. And then dissolving into space. And then rest in the space that you've created. Okay, so congratulations, we're about halfway through the experiment. The next practice is connecting through space through what's called inquiry. So this is about looking directly at awareness itself. And it's an experiential practice. It's not something where you want to come up with a concrete or rational answer. You want to see what your experience is. So again, coming into our experience, whether we're open-eyed or closed-eyed. Body breathing. Body sitting in space. And then pop the question and let go. And the question is, who or what is experiencing your experience? Look directly at your mind. Who or what is experiencing your experience? And continue to rest in the answer that arises, the experiential answer. And resting in this way, sensing there is nothing to do, no one to be, and nowhere to go. Rest in space. Okay, well, you're welcome to continue to rest in space, and I'll go on to talk a little bit more about this practice, a little more words to share. So one can see space as wisdom. In the Mahayana tradition, this is said as form is emptiness and emptiness is form, that there's a non-duality, that form arises from emptiness and there is no emptiness without form. In the Theravadan or Insight tradition, the teaching is on non-self, that there is no unchanging self. There is a self that manages our life, and there is a self that dies at the end of life, but there is no unchanging self. It's continually evolving process, our bodies, our minds. And it's because of space that form can arise, and because of form that there is space. Space is very valuable for helping us let go of how we're conceiving. We can see all conceptions as transitional, as impermanent, because it's through hanging on to concepts, holding fast to them, that we tend to get into conflict with others. Concepts are useful, but they also are a source of friction. So having a sense of connecting with space supports our practice in daily life by helping us open up room for release of attachments. And on the cushion, it also helps, or in our meditation sitting practice, it helps, because when we get overly involved with the arisings during meditation with objects, it can be difficult to support the release that is helpful for ultimate freedom from suffering. I've also used space in my mindfulness meditation practice on its own. So if I have an object that's arising, such as a strong physical sensation or a difficult emotion or a very attractive emotion, then I can recall my experience of space from this practice and include space around the object. So surround the object, say it's a pain in my body, I can surround that space through the mind activity, the meditation activity. And it helps the capacity, helps my capacity to be with that object. Can also imagine space moving into the object and helping to break it up. When we have space around what's happening, we often can see more options for how to respond. Space can be very helpful for refreshment of the mind. So on meditation retreats, we're often advised, if we get too activated during our practice, to go for a walk and just go for a natural walk outside and connect with space. It can be, as we all know, it can be very refreshing to just release whatever activity we're involved in and become more spacious, whether it's through nature, exercise, perhaps music or art, a refreshing conversation. So space is very refreshing. Space is also fun, tends to introduce the unknown, and space can be very restful. Some of the difficulties that can arise with practicing mindfulness of space is that you can space out. So because there's no solid object like the breath of the body, no obvious object to connect with, you can just become kind of disconnected and fuzzy. People can disassociate from their body. Their energy can be disconnected from the body, feel ungrounded, can lead to fantasizing. A lot of imaginary activity of the mind. And if you practice this a lot, it could lead to spiritual bypassing, where you don't actually deal with the realities of life because you're having such a good time out in outer space. So those are some of the challenges. And I know for myself that when I did Dzogchen practice for 10 years, I came to the Insight tradition because it was more grounding for me, and it helped me to develop my capacity to be present with what was arising, and to develop what's called concentration, a collected mind. In daily life, ways that we can connect with space are through natural moments for sky gazing. So having a window that you can look out of, having a photograph of a nice sky on your phone or your computer that you can look at can be helpful for just even for 30 seconds of gaining more space. Being attentive to the space in the room that you're in can be helpful. Sensing the space in our bodies can be helpful. And the space between us and other people can be helpful. So if we're getting caught up with our reactivity to another human being, it can be helpful to sense the space between us and the room for whatever is arising. I'd also like to introduce what I call the hotel lobby practice, which you can do just for a few minutes, whether you're sitting on a chair in your home or at work or standing in a lineup. So you can imagine yourself that you're in a hotel lobby and it's got very tall ceilings and it's very spacious and beautiful. So just try this practice now. And you can decide whether you want to do it with your eyes open or closed. And you're sitting on this very comfortable chair or couch. And you have agreed to meet a friend that you're very happy to be meeting. But you didn't decide exactly where in the lobby you were going to meet. You were just going to meet in the lobby. And you get there before your friend, so you sit down. Because you don't know what direction they're going to come from, and you want to make sure they notice where you are and that you see them, you're alert. You're paying attention. You're not looking at your phone. You're not distracted by looking at people. You're wanting to make sure you don't miss them and that they get a chance to see you. And you're also feeling happy because they're a person you want to get together with. So you're alert, you're relaxed. Because of the happiness, it's helping you feel relaxed. You're in a beautiful space. And your sensors are open on all sides. And you're just waiting. You don't have eyes in the back of your head, but you do have ears that can hear. So your eyes are open, paying attention to both what's in front of you and beside you. Your senses are open, the back of your body, your hearing. Your body sensors are open, your skin is open. Maybe this person wears perfume, so you're waiting for what might be a familiar scent. You're open in your belly and in your heart because of your connection to the person. You feel safe. All of you is open, resting quietly. And again, nowhere to go because you're waiting. No one in particular to be. You don't need to impress anyone or guard yourself. And you don't need to go anywhere. You have nothing to do. You're just waiting. So this practice emphasizes the openness of space practice, the alertness, the restfulness, and is also emphasizing the non-doing aspect. So when we're doing this practice, as much as possible, we want to enter a state of non-doing. We're resting, not doing anything in space. And as I said, the problem with the practice is it's easy to get distracted and less obvious how to pull ourselves back to not being distracted. So this practice does take a lot of training, and it's not a practice you can do without having other trainings to support it. And at the same time, it's a very useful practice for some people. Another way in daily life to connect with space is through your breathing. So 2 spots in the breath that help connect with space. And the first one is at the top of the in-breath. So we'll try that. So just for a minute of breathing in and out, pay particular attention to the top of the in-breath and the space there. And now move your attention to the release at the end of the out breath. And release into space. Okay, so that's something you can do to refresh yourself through the day, is noticing either the top of the in-breath or the end of the out-breath. You can also connect with space in moments of non-doing. So there's lots of moments in our days where we're not doing very much. It could be when you're sitting at a traffic light. You do need to stay alert and attentive, but you're just waiting. And so you can connect with resting in space because you're not doing anything and you're not going anywhere, and you're not, other than being a driver, you're maybe not being anybody in particular. Other places are like in waiting rooms. In a lineup. All of these can be, and you may have other ideas from your own life of times when you're not doing much, and you can connect with space through non-doing. Another use of space in daily life is when we find ourselves caught up in some emotional tension, either just within ourselves or in connection with another person. And in that moment, we have this option that can sometimes be helpful. Instead of needing to defend our views or defend ourselves, we can drop for a moment whatever view or emotional reaction is going on and connect with space. open to not knowing and to possibility. And if we're working with something just by ourselves, we can just let that settle. And then maybe we do need to come up with a response to a situation, but perhaps by bringing space into the mind, new possibilities open up. That there is this option to see more than I currently see. Sometimes we need to literally take space. So if we're in an interaction with another person and it's getting a little heated, perhaps we can request of each other that we have some distance, go for a walk, go into another room, listen to some music, refresh ourselves. So that's another way in daily life that space can be helpful. Space can be helpful for seeing beginnings and endings. So we're coming toward the end of the talk. It did have a beginning and it evolved through space. Risings and passings of things, openings and closings, all of this happens in space. So in summary, I have invited you to experiment with the space element as a support for your well-being. And I would like to finish with two poems. The first one is by R.S. Thomas, and it's called The Bright Field. I have seen the sun break through to illuminate a small field for a while, and gone my way and forgotten it. But that was the pearl of great price, the one field that had the treasure in it. I realize now that I must give all that I have to possess it. Life is not hurrying on to a receding future, nor hankering after an imagined past. It is the turning aside like Moses to the miracle of the lit bush, to a brightness that seemed as transitory as your youth once, but is the eternity that awaits you. And then the second and last thing I wanted to share is from a book called Small Boat, Great Mountain, written by a Theravadan monk about Dzogchen practice. So this monk in the Insight tradition has connected with the practice of Dzogchen. And this poem is written by the first Tsoknyi Rinpoche. It's called the Vajra Song of the first Tsoknyi Rinpoche. Don't wander, place mindfulness on guard. Along the road of distraction, Mara lies in ambush. Mara is the mind clinging to like and dislike. So look into the essence of this magic, free from dualistic fixation. Realize that your mind is unfabricated primordial purity. There is no Buddha elsewhere. Look at your own face. There is nothing else to search for. Rest in your own place. Non-meditation is spontaneous perfection. So capture the royal seat. And with that, I open it up to Christine as the moderator and any questions or sharing of experiences you might have.
Oh, beautiful, Leslie, as always. Thank you. Oh, you always bring such a wonderful perspective and such great gifts for us to explore the practice. And I know there's great benefits in it for me tonight. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Christine. Very kind of you.
When I listen to you talk with such wisdom around space in the practice, it just brings a question to me to wonder how space, I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but how space evolved for you in your practice over time.
Yeah. I did insight practice for 2 years, and then somehow I was drawn to space through listening to teachers on that topic. And I don't know why it's particularly attractive to me. I suspect part of it is growing up in Alberta, because space is so much a part of our experience here with our large skies. So I naturally would have that experience. I've been studying with a teacher now who grew up around water, and he uses a lot of water metaphors.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't really connect to water. Usually water is really cold here. We don't have much access to water, but a lot of access to space.
Yeah.
And then I think probably also it might be just a product of my experience, that perhaps one of the ways I got through life was to extend into space as a way of coping with whatever else was going on. And so it might have been, you could say it's dissociation, but it also can be seen as space.
Yes, exactly. I love what you're saying. I love that you're saying that. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So one of my evolutions was to recognize that I wasn't fully in my body. And so doing yoga and practicing in the insight tradition and really getting into my body was an evolution, understanding the neurophysiology of stress, and then being able to integrate through the body, and then now moving back into space as a practice because I'm more grounded now.
Mm-hmm. I like some of the discussion that you offered around like the non-dual nature of space. And then it prompts me to look at, our perspective, like inside out versus outside in, and then how space holds it all. That was just such a beautiful offering, to release into that. So do you have some more thoughts on that you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's very useful for anyone who does a movement practice, such as I know that you teach yoga, but there are times in yoga where you're very focused on, well, I'm very focused on what's my body doing. And every once in a while, just to go, oh, actually, my body's also in space.
Yes.
And then when you are able to close your eyes during a posture, usually the ones where you're lying on the floor, you can sense the body inside and then the body and the space outside. So see that there is not perceptually, there's not a distinct boundary between inside and outside. Although there is the boundary of your skin, which we take as sort of the physical boundary of our body. But also connecting to space externally and knowing that the body is connected to it can help us to open up to the energetic aspects of practice, and also to the development of the heart qualities. So we can feel perhaps warmth in the body, and we can feel how that warmth can help us move closer to others and feel connected. Space has light in it, and often people start to experience light with meditation practice. So one of the ways that we can help ourselves develop our meditation practice is to use the experience of light in the mind. But that, of course, arises in space.
Yeah, beautiful. I think Phil just popped in a question, which was, can you outline how one can use this practice to deal with stress and anxiety?
Yes. So one of the ways that I would suggest using it is to recognize that well, I have lots of experience with anxiety, so I'll talk about myself.
Okay.
So when I feel anxious, I have a sense of something bad might happen. So that might be a thought that would arise. And I'll have some physiological symptoms. So I may feel some contraction in my body, some change in my breathing, come more up into the top of my chest. And using the experience of space, I can connect at the same time as I connect with the inside of my body. I can utilize the space in which I'm practicing, whether it's in daily life that I'm experiencing the anxiety, and give more room for the sensing that I'm doing of all of those experiences, whether it's the thoughts, the images, the physical sensations, the feeling of fear, and just letting the fear dissolve into space. And some of the help can be also from including space as being bigger than the reaction that's going on in me. So giving it's kind of like letting a horse into a larger corral so it can run around faster and kind of wear itself out. Another really helpful thing I've learned with anxiety is to reassure myself that I can get through this moment of it. And then I can get through the next moment of it, and just keep saying that to myself, that I can be with this moment and continue to say that, because the trouble with anxiety is that it tells us that something bad's going to happen, which then creates a feedback loop that keeps the anxiety going, because we're believing the thought that we can't handle something, or it's beyond us or too much. And so just saying, well, it's here, but I can handle it. And it'll just last for a moment, and then another moment, and then that feeds back to settle it down. Another training is that when we start meditating as a long-term practice, we gradually learn that it's a process of unwinding, of releasing, that has periods of time where things seem refreshing and pleasant, and there's more joy and love available. And then we go through another, some people call them layers, but another part of our experience is now available to us, and we may have some unpleasantness arise. And giving space over time for the whole practice, that this is a practice that takes a lifetime basically, but is very rewarding, because as I release different layers, I gradually have more freedom as to what I choose to do, and I become a person who is more helpful to others because I'm not caught up in my own reactivity. So that's a way to deal with anxiety in practice, is knowing it's temporary. It's going to come and it's going to go, and it's probably going to come back, but it's also going to go away. So seeing the impermanence of it, basically.
Yeah. When I hear you say, I think it was towards the end of your discussion where you mentioned that, this really is a practice that can hold other techniques as well. So when we look at space as like a concentration practice, and putting our attention to the space and holding it and moving with it, do you notice that if there's other practices that act as a good partner with this type of concentration practice? Like maybe we might see our thoughts or our emotions. Like, is there a sense of greater clarity when we start with this process, or this practice, I mean?
I think that most people need to have practices that work with objects that are more concrete than space, but they can certainly be supportive. So when I was trained in this tradition, they said, well, if you get distracted, you can always come back to your body and your breathing. But you have to learn not to fool yourself, because this practice really is about having the object of space as your grounding object, as your stable object. And so that's actually what I'm curious about. Am I ready to go back and do this practice and be able to rest in space more skillfully than I was 12 years ago when I moved into the insight tradition? Because the more we have released our attachments, then there's more capacity in the mind for undistracted resting in space. Resting in emptiness is another word to use. Does that answer your question?
It does, Leslie, because I think that's exactly, the practice is to, like, that feeling, like you're saying, like something that may seem to be spacious is actually us getting sleepy, or we've actually lost our concentration. So I love that you're bringing that it is actually quite a robust practice to actually be with space in its truest concentration. Yeah. Someone actually shared here, Leslie, Thank you for the idea of putting space between myself and experiences or people that may be triggering certain emotions, such as anxiety or not feeling enough in the moment. This rings true to me and my lived experience right now. I also appreciate the concept that stress is created through my holding tightly to certain beliefs, ideas, and expectations.
Mm. Yeah, very true. And I know I do it a lot myself. So, yeah, especially when we feel threatened, when we feel survival is threatened or our view of ourselves is threatened, or people we're close to or love. It's a pretty natural human response. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I'm going to put it out to the group here. I would just love to hear from some people to see what your experiences were. Anyone feels called to share in the chat, like how some of these practices, Leslie gave us lots of different ways to experience. And I'm just wondering if certain practices were maybe resonating or there's some experiences any of you would like to share. We would love to hear from you.
I would like to also invite anyone who wants to put their camera on and unmute themselves if they would like to share. So we're a small enough group, I think that could work quite well. Also understandable if that doesn't appeal to people, because we don't usually do it here.
Yeah. Leslie, when you mentioned in the practice that, there is the formal practice, but also you gave us some great examples about how we can cultivate space in our day to day. And even just like what Shannon was sharing, where we look to put space between, us and our experience. How do you recommend that, we could start that practice for ourselves? Because oftentimes it can maybe be in a moment where it's easy to forget, like that there is the benefit of this, to give ourselves this gift of space. Do you have some thoughts around that?
Yeah, usually when I'm trying to incorporate something new in daily life, I choose one thing to incorporate, and I set an intention, maybe even write it down in a calendar or diary. This week I'm going to look at the sky when I get out of my car and walk to my office. I'm retired, I don't do that anymore, but that was a practice for me for a long time.
Right.
I'm getting out of my car. I live in Calgary. Most of the time the sky is blue. What a joy to, even during the 1 minute I walk from my car to the office, to look at the sky and enjoy the space of the sky, or sitting at my desk looking out the window at the sky, for me was helpful. And setting the intention to do it consciously every day for a period of time, and then it starts to be a habit.
Right.
To include it.
Sorry. Someone just said, I love using the Alberta skies. I love being guided in an outdoor situation. We all know well. And it was so nice to feel the earth beneath me and look out onto that sky, feeling so open and expanding. Thank you. It's true. It is exactly that invitation to feel the connection to the earth and the grounding and the held nature of embodiment through that, but also the connection. When you originally opened, your talk tonight, you did talk about the elements and how space, holds it all. And so that feels like the embodiment piece too.
Yeah. It's also good to recognize that there is space in the body, in the sense of there's space around our perceptions of our sensations. If you did a dissection of a human body or you do surgery, you know that one thing is connected to another. There's actually not that much air we associate air with space. There's a little air bubble in the stomach and some air in the bowel. But if you find, and air, of course, air in the lungs, which is representative of space, but most places in the body there's solid material or fluids. But when we close our eyes and sense our body, all those perceptions arise within space.
Yes. That's a bit of a like we go. Oh, the places we could go. Someone just shared here, thank you. As I'm quite abstract, space meditation comes naturally to me. My work is to become more concrete. I am happy that I'm more grounded now, so can experience beauty in nature in all dimensions, while also enjoying the sounds of the birds and be more observant of what is around me. I've looked at the sky since I was a young girl and never tire of looking deep into the sky. What a beautiful share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
the Dzogchen tradition, that they were called natural meditations, the meditations that occur naturally to people in nature. And as you brought up, it often happens in childhood. Yeah, I'm just going to see what the name of that person was. SB, was it Sharon? Oh no, that was Chana.
Yeah.
Lying on a hill, gazing up at the sky, you probably have done sky gazing quite naturally. Most people have in their childhood. As adults, we tend to maybe not have as many opportunities for it, but we still do come spring.
Yes. And it's, I mean, nature, like when I hear that, nature is that reminder for us and a remembering to come back to the fact that we are more than just our circumstances and what, may be happening at work or within our homes, that it is that invitation of expansiveness to truly open up and remember that we are part of something much bigger, which is like a very powerful remembering.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Bill has said, can you talk about how not identifying with the sense of self naturally allows one to open into the spaciousness of awareness, as there is nothing to hold on to?
Yeah, Phil, that's a really good point. And it certainly is the ultimate goal of a meditator, to release the sense of self. And we have intermittent spells where we're released from the sense of self. It's an ongoing process. And I can't remember the last comment you made there, Phil. Yeah, so when we let go of the sense of self, then the spaciousness of awareness is more clear to us. We see it more clearly, more easily. It's very humbling to recognize how difficult it is to let go of the sense of self over time. Long-term meditation practice, and I find it very encouraging to seek out teachers who are ahead of me on the path and see how they are as human beings, their behavior, the way they speak, the energetic feel of them. It is encouraging that their practice has taken them to a place where they feel very safe to be around, very skilled in how they handle difficult situations. So I would encourage all of you, if you're interested in meditation, to use your spidey senses as you evolve in your practice and seek out teachers who inspire you in that way.
Yeah, that's a beautiful offering, Leslie. And as you talk about that, it makes me think about, your original offering, which was to say that this really leads us to looking at where we could be clinging, So when you look at it and understand that release of self and an understanding of where there is clinging, do you have some thoughts around how we can help manage that for our practice?
Yes, in the insight tradition, that would be called right effort. So we can notice when we are getting into a situation, and we can try to let go of whatever the arising is that is a sign of clinging. So it may be a negative emotion, or it may be like a grasping, which can feel pleasant, like I really want that, and Imagining I'm going to get it is making me very happy, but we sense the grasping at it. And so recognizing that it's happening, and at that time when we see it there, doing what we can to be present with it. And sometimes we need to use practices that help us to release it. So we may not be able to just be with it with bare awareness and see it arise and pass. It may persist. And so, for example, if we're feeling ill will, such as envy or anger, then we may want to switch to cultivating loving kindness, compassion, other more positive emotions. And then one of the things you can do is to then allow your mind to go back to what was present with the ill will, if it's still there, and blend the two together. Or you can wrap the ill will with the loving kindness. So I see you there, and in Buddhism they call it Mara, the difficulty, and I am with you and I care for you. So just caring for something can help it to soften. You can also use the element practices. So in the Tibetan tradition, I was trained to use the elements, and then for example, imagining water, and then you could, if you feel like whatever's arising would be cleansed or softened or gradually worn down by water, you can imagine water, and then you can bring it into wherever the tight, contracted part of yourself is, the difficulty. Or you could imagine yourself just resting in water and letting whatever the difficulty is dissolve. There are various ways you can use the element practices. You can switch to another part of the body. If you're getting a body sensation, which may be associated with an emotion, you could say it's in your left side of your chest. You could switch to some other part of your body that seems to be unaffected, and bring your attention to that. Calm the physiology in the body, and then you can move back and include, so that you're more able to be with what you're in, the safe zone or window of tolerance, as the psychologists like to call it, that you can actually be with it without your nervous system getting overwhelmed. It's not very useful to be overwhelmed by your experience.
Yeah. Oh, Leslie, you've given us like so much. And I'm just looking at the time, and it's 8:25. So I wanted to maybe, it looks like our questions and comments have, just slowed a bit. So maybe now we could just ask you if you could perhaps wrap up, or, just summarize your talk, of maybe 3 key points that you would like us to take with us. I'm sure.
Okay.
There's
I want to see if I can get these slides.
Okay.
Again.
Okay.
Can you see that?
No.
Can you see them now?
No.
Oh, they're so beautiful. Okay, so whatever, I will have to practice with that for the next time that I learn how to. I had it working this afternoon. I was trying to show you skies. So
yes,
basically what I would say as a summary is that I've introduced you to practices that help us to connect with space, which have the potential to support our gradual release from stress, from contraction, and increase happiness. I would invite you to take your own pictures of skies and have them available for your practice, to do some practice with space and see if it adds. And if you're curious about this practice, it's based on the Dzogchen teachings. I can spell that for you: DZOGCHEN. And you could research that if it appeals to you. Lama Surya Das is a person who has made it very accessible for Westerners. And there are many Tibetan teachers who teach it as well in North America, and of course in in India and Nepal, those places. So yeah, I'm just really happy to share it with you because it's a very helpful practice for me. So I'm hoping it can be helpful for you as well.
Yes, beautiful, Leslie. Thank you. And I'm just going into the chat right now to share the link for donations. So if anyone feels called to support us with our efforts, we would appreciate it. And of course, dear Leslie, with gratitude to you and the space you have created for us tonight to explore this practice. With gratitude.
Yeah, to you as well, and to everyone who's here.
Yes.
I enjoyed being with you, and we'll look forward to the next talk, which I think is on forgiveness, which is a wonderful practice.
Yes, it is wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight and sharing your thoughts. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks with Rabbi Klein. So thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Leslie.
Bye-bye.